Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial we are going to be giving a spin to the popular Argyle design using TeckWrapcraft Mermaid Opal vinyl over a beach tumbler. We are primarily going to work on the peachy pink of the two colors, so we are going to go ahead and ombre spray paint our tumbler. I have a 32 ounce plump from the Steel Magnolia, and it is a cup that I stripped, so it did look a little rough in the beginning, but we are going to first spray the bottom with matte river rock from CRYSTALAC. The second color was a candy pink from Ironlac, and this paint is just horrible. I actually have used it in a couple of tutorials, but only because I could not find this color elsewhere. This can went in the trash along with the coral from Rust-Oleum that we used next. Third, I'm going to paint my white spot down towards the bottom in between what is going to be my gold sand and my first primary color. And then I go back in just around the bottom rim with the tan color for our gold. I have my PDB Creative Studio glitter lineup here for our peach. Of course, I will let you know what each of those colors are as we are working on the tumbler. And then for the blue, I will have those colors listed down below in the description for you. To apply our glitter, I want something that is going to have a longer dry time than glue, since we are going to be spending quite a bit of time ombreing these glitters to get them perfect. I am using Speedy Petey from DIY Epoxy. Now this is a fast set, so yes, it dries fast, but it is quicker than other epoxies. I have plenty of work time to apply my glitters. However, since the dry time is so quickly, I will be able to spray seal this and then go in with my first coat of epoxy within 2 hours. I had already done the blue ombre, which turned out beautiful. The first color I am using for the sand gold color at the bottom is MIDAS. And again, all of the glitters I am using are from PDB Creative Studio. I just popped open that shaker top. All of the glitters from PDB Creative Studio come in bottles and all have the shaker lids on top, which is incredible. I don't have to worry about putting them in bottles myself, dealing with bags and the glitter mess. It's all already done for us. So I went heavy on the bottom of the tumbler and around the bottom rim, held the tumbler at an angle, and then sprinkled the glitter right there at the bottom of the rim so it would flow into the white. The white that we are using is GLITZY, which happens to be one of my custom mixes that I did with PDB. And I am starting right there in the center of my white, holding the cup at an angle and allowing that to flow down into our gold. And then I tilt it the opposite way and do the exact same thing so it flows up into that lighter pink color. The pink we are using is Grace, and we're going to just repeat the same steps as we did with the white. Start sort of in the middle of your second or your pink color, let that flow down into the white, and then tilt your cup the opposite way, let it flow into the color above. Next, we're going to grab our SARAPHINA. I think I said that right. I may not have, but I am just doing the same exact thing as I did with my prior two colors. Next, we have BELLINI. I'm going to go heavy around that top rim and then tilt the cup towards the table and sprinkle that glitter at the top rim and allow it to flow into our SARAPHINA that's below. Now when you're applying your glitter, if you have not done a lot of ombres, if your ombre game is not super strong, then just go a little bit slower with your colors. As you can see, I'm going back and adding some more of the prior colors in because I went a little light, so just in case I didn't get that ombre perfect, I still have some epoxy exposed underneath, and I will be able to go back and ombre that a little bit better. So after I did that, I took 2 pieces of just printer paper, rolled it up, you can also use parchment paper, and patted all of my glitter down. I allowed this to dry for about 2 hours and then went in with 2 coats of Rust-Oleum Matte Clear Coat just to seal those colors in so they would not spread. Added 1 layer of epoxy. I did use Speedy Petey, so after 30 minutes I added on a very thin second layer. And then I added in a little bit of Snow Mica from PDB Creative Studio into my extra epoxy. And I'm just going to add some sort of like waves throughout the cup using my glove. I'm not being very particular on this. I just want to add a little bit more dimension for underneath our vinyl. But half of it will be covered up by that vinyl, so I'm not going to be too particular. I am very quickly adding this on because again I'm using a fast set, and you do want your cup to be nice and smooth and glossy for the type of vinyl that we are using. So definitely try to get those little streaks as flat as you possibly can so you do not have to sand and add on another layer before this next step. So the vinyl that we are using is from the Opal pattern vinyl collection from TeckWrapcraft. This, I can't even explain how wowed I was when I opened this package and cut all of these gorgeous vinyls out. There are 3 mermaid patterns in this pack, so we grabbed out the blue and the pink to do our 2 cups. And if you have used Opal or holographic vinyl in the past, you know it can scuff up really easily. TeckWrapcraft always has a protective layer on their vinyls that can be easily scratched. So I'm just going to remove that protective film before I put it in my machine. Now I did not use a cut file, I made my own, and to do that I measured the dimensions of my tumbler, which was 9.7 by 10.3. And I added in this diamond shape. I just made it a little bit smaller. You don't have to be particular on size because we are going to resize once we have all of these together. I duplicated that by 6, lined them up, and then aligned them by clicking the align button at the top. And then I attached those, hovered over to our cup dimensions, and then just resize that to the 9.7. I then duplicated them until I would have a little bit of overhang, or at least half of them would hang over the top and the bottom, and then I aligned them once again and attached them all together. Now we are going to use the slice function, and in order to do that we are going to need to weld these so it's one image. And if you've used the weld function before in Design Space, you know that sometimes when you click that button it just gets rid of some of your design, and that is exactly what happened when we did that here. So to fix it, I just duplicated the pattern, lined it up there towards the bottom. We're going to have to slice this image anyway, so it doesn't matter if I have all that excess. I highlighted them both and then welded it back together so I would have the complete image. This doesn't always work, it just worked with this particular one because it didn't put some crazy slice lines all through there. So once I had my image all put together, I layered that back on top of my cup dimensions with half of the diamond hanging off the top and the bottom, highlighted them, and then clicked slice. You're going to get rid of all of the extra images, and here I did make a mistake. I kept the black where I should have kept the original image that showed as a complete square, so it would also cut out the outline, but instead I did keep that center image, but it's okay. I just ended up cutting it with my vinyl cutter, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm just making my straight edges alongside of my design and cutting off all that excess vinyl. Once I finished trimming off all of the edges, I did go through and removed all of the excess vinyl that was in between my design. Now, I did have to go through in a couple of small spots and just trim down where the machine had cut, because it didn't cut all the way through. Like in this one spot here, I did trim it just a little bit to get it to remove. So you may want to use a custom setting or use your default vinyl setting and just do a heavier cut. It does give you an option to do a lighter or heavier pressure. I had already did the blue cup at this point, and I tried to reuse the transfer tape that I used for that one. It was a really big mistake. I should have tried not to be cheap. I always try to save where I can, and it definitely was not a good idea here. I should have grabbed a fresh sheet. It gave me lots of trouble, but we did end up getting it around the tumbler without having any errors. So I got this flattened out, and then I flipped it over, pulled a little bit of that backing off, and then trimmed off about ½ an inch so that I could adhere to my tumbler once I got it lined up. I wrapped this around our peachy pink beach tumbler. I lined that up with the rim on the top and on the bottom. And then once I had it in position, I pressed down that exposed pattern. Then I flipped it around onto my table, removed a little bit more of that back so that it would press off as I was pressing my vinyl down on the tumbler. I did use the squeegee tool because I do not want any bubbles to find their way underneath my vinyl. This is Opal, so if you have any bubbles underneath, it's definitely going to show under your epoxy. Once you have all of your vinyl around your tumbler, remove that transfer tape and then go back through with your craft knife and pop any bubbles that you might find that have made their way under there. If there is a pattern on my vinyl, I always try to go alongside the pattern so that you will not be able to see the little nicks from the craft knife. So in this case, I did try to go along the edge of the mermaid scales to help camouflage those little nicks. Next, we're going to be adding on our stripes. And for that, I am using also TeckWrapcraft. This is their textured Champagne Gold. They do have a sample pack, but I don't believe that it includes the gold, so I grabbed the roll of this. It cuts so good because theirs is much thinner than other brands, and I did cut 12 stripes per cup at 0.08 by 12 inches long. Now Cricut only cuts to 11.5 inches if you have a 12 by 12 mat. I have a 12 by 24 that I can use for when I want to cut a lot at one time or larger cuts. So it did allow me to do the 12-inch long strips, and if you have a 32-ounce plump from the Steel Magnolia, you're definitely going to need them. As you are pressing these down, make sure that you are pushing and applying pressure so that they do not move when you put your epoxy on. The worst thing is to spend so much time putting on these intricate details, and then once you apply your epoxy, they start lifting and moving. I actually did not get one of these pressed down very well, and I had it move over about a 1/4 of an inch, so it's definitely visible. And although I didn't want to cover up any of the design, I'm gonna have to add on a decal to cover up that little mistake later on. Once I finished all of my stripes, then I went in with my craft blade and trimmed off all of that excess vinyl, leaving the strips that meet at the bottom into a point. And after I finished trimming off all that excess vinyl, it was time for my final layers of epoxy. Now I only did one layer of epoxy prior to taking the photos and videos for y'all, because I know that I do have a couple of little spots that I want to correct on these. There was some vinyl that lifted around the top, and then of course the little piece of vinyl that completely went rogue on me that will need to be covered up with a name or a decal. So on this layer of epoxy, I did go slightly heavier so I would have plenty of room to go over with my torch and not damage any of my vinyl. And here they are complete. These were so difficult to get good videos and photos with. I think they have looked different every time they have showed on camera and every picture that I have took because of the contrast between the opal and the glitter on the tumbler. They're just absolutely beautiful in person, and I hope that you can see that through this video. As always, all of the materials that I have used in this tutorial are listed in the description below. Follow us on Instagram and join our Facebook group. We have lots of fun giveaways and extra tips and tricks in those as well. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a tremendous amount. And if you hit that little bell in the corner, you'll be notified anytime a new tutorial drops. Thank you all so much. That's all for today. We'll see you next time.